Noah Bennett's fight for justice, the teenager who took on the system. The courtroom was thick with tension. Quiet murmurs drifted like smoke above the polished oak benches, punctuated by the occasional shuffle of papers. Clinical light from the chandeliers gleamed coldly on the wooden floors, throwing sharp shadows across the solemn faces filling every seat. In front of them all stood the high, imposing bench where Judge Malcolm Granger presided. His reputation was as sharp-edged as his gavel, unyielding, cold, and efficient. His stern glare alone had sent seasoned attorneys scrambling for their notes. Today, he barely concealed his annoyance as his sharp eye swept the room. Then the heavy courtroom doors creaked open. A hush fell. Every head turned toward the entrance, where a tall, thin teenager stood hesitating on the threshold. Noah Bennett, 17 years old, his brown skin luminous against the stark light, clutched a worn leather satchel in one hand and tugged at the lapel of an oversized gray blazer with the other. His sneakers squeaked softly as he crossed the tiled floor to the defense table. The room stirred. Some spectators exchanged curious glances. Others whispered behind their hands, their tones laced with disbelief, even pity. "What's he doing here?" someone muttered. Judge Granger's cold stare landed on him. His lip curled faintly, an expression halfway between irritation and mockery. "This isn't the school gymnasium," he said, his baritone voice cutting through the murmurs like a blade. "Are you sure you're not lost on your way to basketball practice?" A ripple of laughter broke the tension, led by Stephen Radcliffe, the landlord's attorney. Radcliffe was a polished legal veteran with decades of courtroom wins under his belt and an air of smug certainty that today would be no different. But Noah didn't waver. He straightened his shoulders, looked the judge square in the eye, and spoke. "No, Your Honor," he replied. "I'm here to defend my mother." The courtroom fell silent. It was a silence that hung heavy in the air, as if the walls themselves were holding their breath. But to understand how Noah Bennett came to stand alone in this courtroom, in defense of his family, we need to go back to where it all began. The storm before the calm. Noah and his mother, Olivia Bennett, lived in a modest duplex on Larkspur Street, a part of South Ledgefield known more for broken windows than hopeful futures. Olivia worked as a cleaner, scrubbing the gleam back into offices for people who didn't notice her. She never complained. Not about the double shifts, the calloused hands, or the late rent payments. She made their two-bedroom apartment feel like home. Their living room smelled faintly of lemons and soap, a battered bookshelf sagged under library finds, and old family photos smiled down from peeling walls. On a sweltering afternoon in August, Olivia came home to find a piece of paper shoved under the door. It was an eviction notice. Her hands shook as she read it. "Past due rent. Failure to pay. 30 days to vacate." "But I've paid," she whispered. She dropped her bag on the kitchen table, its contents spilling out cleaning gloves, an empty lunch container, and the time card that had earned her the money to pay that rent. Noah, seated nearby doing homework, caught her expression immediately. He snatched the letter from her hands. His fingers traced the black print as his jaw clenched. "This isn't right," Noah said quietly. "Mom, you've been on time for months." Olivia sat down heavily in a chair. "It doesn't matter," she murmured. "We don't have a say in this. Landlords like Radcliffe's client? They have money. They have lawyers. People like us don't win." But Noah wasn't ready to give up. Not on their home. Not on his mother. And certainly not on what was right. The decision to fight. That night, while Olivia slept, Noah stayed awake at the kitchen table. He stared at the eviction notice, his mind running wild with questions. Something was wrong. Noah's mom was never late. Not anymore. They'd been scraping by, but they had been careful. She kept receipts for every payment. And yet, here they were. Noah's heart pounded as he powered up his second-hand laptop and began searching. Tenant rights in Georgia. Eviction laws. How to fight an eviction without a lawyer. At first, it was like reading a foreign language. Legalese twisted his brain in knots. But he kept going. The longer he read, the clearer things became. Noah found one line that made his pulse spike. All eviction notices must be notarized by a current, licensed notary public. He picked up their notice again. Squinted at the scribbled signature. Martha J. Whitman. Noah ran her name through the state's public records database. She'd retired 2 years ago. This wasn't a clerical error. It was fraud. A plan comes together. For weeks, Noah read everything he could. He borrowed books from the library, printed legal documents at school, and took notes furiously in the margins of his notebooks. He practiced arguments in front of the bathroom mirror, timing how long he could speak without glancing at his notes. His mother watched him quietly at first, worried but supportive. One night, she brought him a grilled cheese sandwich. He barely noticed. "You've done more than enough, Noah," she whispered, her hand on his shoulder. "You don't have to carry this." But Noah shook his head. "If we don't fight, who will?" He knew Radcliffe would crush them in court if he slipped up even once. So he prepared as if his life depended on it. Because it did. The day of the hearing. On the day of the hearing, Noah's oversized blazer swallowed his thin frame, but his jaw was set, and his grip on his binder was tight. They walked together to the courthouse, he and his mother. She wore her best blouse. He carried the weight of both their hopes. Inside the courtroom, Stephen Radcliffe gave them one glance and turned back to his notes, smiling thinly as if to say, "This won't take long." Judge Granger, austere and impatient, wasted no time. And when Noah introduced himself as Olivia's representative, the snickering in the room was immediate. Radcliffe delivered his opening argument with the confidence of a man who had never lost. The tenant failed to pay rent for 2 consecutive months. Under Section 45 of the Landlord-Tenant Act, we are within our rights to pursue eviction. Noah listened quietly, and then he stood. Noah Bennett makes his case. "Your Honor," Noah said, his voice clear and unwavering, "the notice served to my mother was not legally valid." Granger's gaze sharpened. Radcliffe sighed. "Mr. Bennett, are you saying this was a clerical error? Because procedural mistakes do not invalidate the core facts. Your mother didn't pay." Noah shook his head. "This isn't a clerical error. This is fraud." He held up the eviction notice. The notary who signed this, Martha J. Whitman, retired 2 years before this document was issued. The law states an eviction notice requires a valid, practicing notary. Without that, it's not enforceable. The gallery rustled with murmurs. Radcliffe shifted in his chair, his smile fading. Judge Granger tapped his gavel for silence. "Do you have proof of this claim?" Noah nodded and presented certified documents from the notary registry, confirming Whitman's retirement date. He handed over copies of precedent cases that reinforced his point. State v. Harper, 2008. Invalid notice voided eviction. Franklin v. Rhodes, 2011. Procedural flaws can't be overlooked, even in cases of non-payment. Granger reviewed the papers silently. When he finally looked up, his face was unreadable. "We will recess while this evidence is verified." The turning point. After an hour, the courtroom reconvened. Judge Granger's tone was different. "This court finds the evidence credible," he said. "Mr. Bennett, your arguments are sound. Mr. Radcliffe, do you wish to challenge this?" Radcliffe's face was red. His polished demeanor cracked. "No, Your Honor," he replied tightly. Granger leaned forward. "Mr. Bennett, I underestimated you. You've demonstrated more legal acumen than many seasoned professionals." Noah remained still. His mother's hand found his shoulder from behind, gripping tightly. "You've made your case," Granger said. "This eviction notice is invalid. Furthermore, the court orders restitution to the Bennetts for wrongful eviction and emotional damages." The courtroom was silent. And then scattered applause broke out. A new beginning. Outside the courthouse, Olivia hugged her son so tightly he could hardly breathe. "You did it," she whispered. "You really did it." "We did it," Noah corrected her. Judge Granger approached them on the steps. "You've got potential," he said. "When you're ready, I'll be here. If you pursue law, I'll recommend you myself." Noah shook his hand, feeling for the first time the weight of possibility lifting. That night, as they walked home past the corner store and the cracked sidewalks of Larkspur Street, Olivia slipped her hand into his. "What now?" she asked. Noah smiled. "I study harder," he said. "One day, I'll be back here. As a real lawyer." And he meant it. Epilogue. Noah Bennett's legacy. Noah's case became local news. His story spread through Ledgefield's tight-knit communities. More tenants came forward with similar claims. Evictions were challenged. Landlords like Radcliffe were scrutinized. A year later, Noah interned with a nonprofit advocating for housing rights. And at night, he studied harder than ever. Because this was just the beginning. Justice wasn't a gift. It was something you fought for. And Noah Bennett had only just begun.